All right, so let's talk design,
Okay.
but not just like the make it pretty kind of design.
Okay.
We're going to dive into how design like actually solves problems and makes things work better and yeah, even impacts the bottom line.
Yeah.
The thing is sometimes design's impact gets lost in translation.
Right.
And that's what we're unpacking today with this piece, communicating design value winning stakeholder buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine this, you've got this awesome design solution, but you need to convince the boss or your team or maybe even a client, why it matters.
Right.
This deep dive is all about making design matter, getting that buy-in and showing its true worth.
You hit the nail on the head. It's about shifting how people see design. It's often viewed as something we just add on at the end.
Yeah.
But it should really be like driving decisions from the very beginning, helping organizations reach their goals.
So it's less about showing off a flashy design and more about speaking the language of like results, right? Like how does this design actually make things better?
Exactly. You need to show how good design leads to tangible outcomes. Things like higher revenue, happier customers, or even sparking real innovation.
Okay, I'm all about tangible outcomes.
Uh-huh.
So break it down for me.
Yeah.
What does communicating design value actually look like in the real world?
Think of it as like translating the benefits of design into something that clicks with different people.
Okay.
So for example, if you're talking to a CEO, you might focus on how design thinking can capture more of the market.
Right.
For engineers, you'd probably highlight how a user-focused design process actually makes development smoother and reduces bugs.
Uh-huh.
And for the marketing team, it's all about how design strengthens the brand and gets customers excited.
So it's like a tailored suit. You wouldn't wear the same suit to a wedding and a board meeting, right?
Exactly.
You adjust the message depending on who you're talking to.
Precisely. You need to understand what each audience cares about, what keeps them up at night, and tailor your message to address their specific needs and concerns.
Makes sense. The source material talks a lot about human-centered design, or HCD. I feel like I hear that term everywhere these days.
Yeah.
But what does it actually mean in the context of like communicating design value?
HCD is a design approach that prioritizes deep understanding of the people you are designing for.
Okay.
It's about putting their needs, their desires, and even their quirks at the heart of every design decision.
So it's not just about aesthetics then. It's about making things that people actually want to use, right?
Exactly. It's about usefulness and usability as much as it's about aesthetics.
Yeah.
Think about Airbnb. Their success is largely attributed to their incredibly user-centric approach.
Oh, you know what? You're totally right. I use Airbnb all the time.
Yeah.
And I never really thought about why it's so easy to use. It just, yes.
Yeah.
You find what you need, you book it.
Yeah.
Oh, they read my mind.
That's HCD in action. They invested heavily in understanding their users' needs and pain points.
Wow.
And their entire platform reflects that. It's designed to make the user experience as seamless and enjoyable as possible.
That's a great example. So we see how HCD can lead to success. But how do we actually convince the higher-ups, the stakeholders, that this approach is worth investing in?
Right.
What are the ingredients for a winning pitch?
The source material highlights 3 key elements: data, storytelling, and visuals.
Okay.
You need to use data to demonstrate the impact of design craft compelling narratives that resonate with your audience, and leverage visuals to make complex ideas easily digestible.
Okay, let's unpack those data first.
Mm-hmm.
How can we use data to prove that design is making a difference, not just adding cost?
Imagine you've redesigned a website's checkout process.
Okay.
You can track key metrics like conversion rates, how many people abandon their carts, and customer satisfaction scores. If your redesign is successful, these metrics will show tangible improvements.
Right.
You're literally speaking the language of numbers, which is often the most convincing way to get buy-in.
It's not just about saying like, hey, look, it's prettier now.
Right.
It's about saying this design led to a 15% increase in sales. That's a powerful statement.
Data provides the evidence you need to demonstrate the return on investment of good design.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to just throw numbers at people. You need to bring those numbers to life.
And that's where storytelling comes in, right? Numbers are great, but everyone loves a good story.
Exactly. Stories help us connect with information on a deeper, more emotional level.
Right.
So instead of just presenting dry statistics, you weave a narrative that showcases the human impact of your design.
I like that.
For example, you could share a story about a frustrated customer who was finally able to complete a task effortlessly thanks to your redesigned interface.
Okay.
Or talk about how a design change improved employee workflow and boosted team morale.
Yeah.
Stories make the data relatable and memorable.
They give the data a human face. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, these numbers are great, but this is how it actually impacted someone's life.
Yeah.
That makes it real.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of visuals in this process. A picture can be worth 1,000 words, especially when you're trying to communicate complex ideas.
Visuals are key, for sure. I'd much rather look at a clear infographic than wade through a dense report.
Right.
But how do visuals play into communicating design value specifically?
Visuals can take many forms.
Okay.
Think about using prototypes to show how a product will actually work. Journey maps can illustrate the user experience, and data visualizations can highlight key metrics in a way that's easy to grasp. These visuals make your design more tangible, helping stakeholders understand and buy into your vision.
It's like you're giving them a sneak peek, a glimpse into the future they're investing in.
Right.
They can see the potential, not just hear about it. Are there any companies that are doing this really well, like using these elements to really champion design?
The source material highlights a fantastic case study, IBM.
IBM.
Really?
That's fascinating. They're not exactly known for being like a cutting-edge design firm. How did they pull that off?
It was a multi-pronged approach. They invested heavily in design education for their employees, created design thinking frameworks to guide their work, and made a conscious effort to measure the impact of design on their overall business outcomes.
So they walked the walk. They didn't just talk about design. They made it a core part of their company's DNA.
Exactly. And they did it strategically. They used internal advocacy training programs and showcased successful design projects to convince the entire organization that design wasn't just a nice-to-have, but a must-have for their future success.
It's inspiring to see that even a massive company like IBM can become design-led. It shows that it's possible, even if it takes time and effort.
Right.
But let's be real. It's not always smooth sailing, is it? What are some of the roadblocks people might hit when trying to champion design within their organizations?
You're right. Design evangelism can be tough. One common challenge is quantifying the fuzzy benefits, like user satisfaction or brand perception.
Yeah, how do you measure like delight or trust?
Exactly. But just because these benefits are difficult to quantify doesn't mean they're not valuable.
Right.
You need to think outside the box and use a mix of qualitative and quantitative data. Things like user testimonials, analyzing social media sentiment, or even creating case studies that show how design thinking led to things like increased customer loyalty can paint a more complete picture.
So it's about getting creative with our measurement tools and finding ways to tell the full story, not just the easily quantifiable parts. What about pushback from people who just don't get design?
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all encountered that at some point.
Oh, absolutely. You'll hear things like, design is just about making things pretty, or we don't have time for this touchy-feely stuff.
Yeah.
It can be frustrating.
So what's the best way to handle that kind of resistance? Do you just keep hitting them with data until they give in?
Persistence is important, but it's not about forcing people to change their minds. You need to understand where their skepticism is coming from.
Okay.
Are they worried about costs? Are they afraid that incorporating design will slow things down? Once you understand their perspective, you can tailor your message to address their specific concerns.
Like disarming a bomb. You need to carefully diffuse the situation, not just keep throwing grenades at it. So it's about having a genuine conversation, not just a lecture.
Exactly. It's about building relationships and demonstrating that you're a partner, not an adversary.
Right.
You're all on the same team working towards the same goals.
Speaking of teams, what about colleagues who maybe just don't speak design? They might not understand the terminology or the process. How do we bridge that gap?
Patience and education are key. Don't assume everyone understands the nuances of design thinking or user research.
Yeah.
Take the time to explain your process clearly and simply. Invite them to observe user interviews or participate in brainstorming sessions. The more they're exposed to the design process, the more likely they are to understand and appreciate its value.
It's about demystifying design, right? Showing them that it's not this magical, inaccessible process, but a structured approach to problem solving that anyone can learn and contribute to.
Exactly. And sometimes the best way to learn is by involve them in the process. Give them a chance to see design thinking in action, and they'll be more likely to become advocates themselves.
Okay, so we've talked about quantifying those fuzzy benefits, dealing with resistance, and bridging the knowledge gap. Are there any other major hurdles we should be prepared for?
Time and resource constraints are a common challenge. Building a case for design takes time and effort, and you might not always have the resources you need for things like comprehensive user research, creating polished prototypes, or developing those killer presentations.
Ugh, the budget monster.
Yeah.
It's always lurking in the shadows. So how do you make the most of limited time and resources when trying to champion design?
Focus on small wins.
Okay.
Instead of trying to revolutionize the entire system overnight, Start with a small, impactful project where you can clearly demonstrate design's value.
Right.
Maybe it's redesigning a single web page or streamlining a specific user flow. By showing tangible results on a smaller scale, you can build momentum and gain support for more ambitious projects down the road.
It's like building a house. You start with the foundation, not the roof.
Exactly.
Prove the value in smaller, more manageable chunks, and then scale up from there.
Don't get overwhelmed by the big picture. Start small, build confidence, and use those early wins to fuel your design advocacy.
You know, it's easy to get bogged down in all the challenges, but I want to highlight how encouraging this source material actually is. It's not just about pointing out the obstacles, it's about empowering designers to become true advocates for their work.
You're absolutely right. The core message is this design is valuable, but it's up to us to communicate that value effectively.
Yeah.
We need to be proactive and show the world what design can do.
It's like a call to action for designers to step up and become leaders, to shape the future of the organizations and the experiences they create. We've got this powerful tool set, now it's time to use it.
Absolutely. We need to be confident in our expertise and recognize that design isn't just about making things look pretty. It's about solving problems, improving lives, and creating a better future. It's about making design matter.
So as we move into the next part of this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to really take to heart?
Even if you don't have designer in your job title, understanding these principles can help you champion great ideas and solutions within your own organization. Design thinking is a powerful tool for anyone who wants to make a difference.
Whether you're in marketing, engineering, or finance, you can use these insights to advocate for better solutions, improve user experiences, and drive innovation within your team. It's about recognizing the power of design thinking regardless of your role.
It's about being an advocate for good design, for intuitive experiences, and for solutions that truly meet people's needs.
I love that. So stay tuned, listeners. In the next part, we'll delve even deeper into the specific tools and techniques you can use to make design matter in your world. We'll explore how to craft compelling narratives, build relationships, and ultimately become a design champion within your own sphere of influence.
It's interesting you say that about design thinking being for everyone. Sometimes the biggest challenge isn't convincing others, it's convincing ourselves.
Oh, tell me about it. Imposter syndrome is so real, especially in the creative field. It can definitely hold us back from putting our ideas out there.
Absolutely. We need to believe in our work before we can convince others to believe in it too. Sometimes that means reframing how we see ourselves. Instead of thinking, I'm just a designer, we need to own our expertise. We are strategic thinkers, problem solvers, and agents of change.
Yes. It's about wearing that design advocate hat with pride. We bring a unique perspective to the table, and that perspective is valuable. Speaking of advocating for design, from your experience, what are some of the most effective ways to communicate design value? What really resonates with stakeholders?
Real-world examples and case studies are incredibly powerful. People connect with stories, and they tend to remember a compelling anecdote more than a dry statistic.
No, that makes sense. It's about making the information relatable and memorable. It's like, hey, this company over here did this, and look at the amazing results they got.
Exactly. So if you're trying to convince your boss to invest in user research, don't just talk about the theoretical benefits. Find an example of a company that used user research to uncover a key insight that led to a game-changing product improvement or a huge jump in sales.
And I bet visuals can really drive that point home.
Yeah.
I'm a visual learner. If I could see it, I'm much more likely to understand it.
Absolutely. A well-designed presentation with strong visuals can be incredibly persuasive. Use charts and graphs to illustrate data. Use mock-ups and prototypes to show your design in action. And don't be afraid to use photos and videos to bring the user experience to life.
It's like painting a picture for them. They can see the vision, feel the experience, and get excited about the possibilities.
And don't just focus on showcasing the end product. Highlight the process. Walk them through your design thinking journey. Explain how you arrived at your solution. Show the iterations and refinements. That transparency builds trust.
It shows them that you're not just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. There's a method to the madness, a thoughtful and deliberate process behind it all.
Exactly. And when stakeholders understand the process, they're more likely to trust your judgment and value your expertise. It's about bringing them along on the journey, not just presenting them with the destination.
Speaking of journeys earlier, we talked about how important it is to tailor your message to different audiences.
Yeah.
You wouldn't give the same presentation to the CEO as you would to the engineering team, right?
Absolutely. Different stakeholders have different priorities, different levels of understanding. You need to speak their language.
So how do you figure out what each audience cares about? Do you just stalk them on LinkedIn and hope for the best?
Yeah, LinkedIn can be helpful, but it's really about doing your homework. Before any presentation or meeting, take some time to learn about your audience. What are their goals? What are their pain points? What are their concerns? Once you understand their perspective, you can craft a message that resonates with them.
It's like putting on your detective hat and gathering intel before you go into the meeting.
Exactly. The more you know about your audience, the better equipped you'll be to communicate effectively and persuade them to see your vision.
So we've talked about what to do, but what about what not to do? What are some common mistakes that designers make when trying to communicate design value?
One of the biggest mistakes is using too much jargon. We designers love our fancy terms, but we can easily alienate our audience if they don't understand what we're talking about.
Oh, I've been there. I get so excited about a concept that I forget not everyone speaks fluent design.
It happens. So make a conscious effort to use clear, simple language that everyone can understand. Avoid acronyms and technical terms unless you're absolutely sure your audience is familiar with them.
It's like translating from design speak to human speak.
Exactly. Another common mistake is being too focused on aesthetics. While aesthetics are important, they shouldn't be the sole focus of your communication. You're trying to demonstrate the value of design as a problem-solving tool, not just a way to make things look pretty.
Don't get lost in the weeds of color palettes and font choices. Focus on the bigger picture, how design helps achieve business goals, improve user experiences, and drive innovation.
You got it. And finally, one of the biggest mistakes is not being prepared to answer tough questions. Stakeholders will want to know how you're measuring the impact of your design, how much it's going to cost, and what the return on investment will be.
That's where the data we talked about earlier comes in, right?
Exactly. You need to be able to back up your claims with evidence, do your research, gather your data, and be prepared to answer those tough questions confidently and persuasively. You need to own your expertise.
So it's not enough to just have a great design solution. You need to be able to articulate its value in a way that resonates with stakeholders. You need to be a storyteller, a data analyst, and a master communicator all rolled into one.
It's a challenge, but it's also incredibly rewarding. When you can effectively communicate the value of design, you're not just getting your designs approved. You're creating a culture where design is valued and respected. You're ensuring that design has a seat at the table when important decisions are being made.
It's about elevating design from a nice-to-have to a must-have. It's about making design a core part of the organization's DNA.
Exactly. And that shift doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, effort, and a lot of consistent communication, but it's worth it. When design is truly valued, it can transform organizations, improve lives, and make the world a better place.
It's inspiring to think about the impact we can have when we champion design effectively.
Yeah.
But let's get practical. What are some specific tools and techniques that designers can use to communicate design value? What are your go-to methods?
One tool that I find incredibly valuable is user journey mapping. It's a powerful way to visualize the user experience and understand their needs and pain points.
I love user journey maps. They're so helpful for seeing the experience through the user's eyes. It's like creating a roadmap for their journey.
Exactly. They help you identify areas for improvement opportunities for innovation and potential roadblocks that might be hindering the user's experience. And the best part is they're easy to understand even for people who aren't designers.
So how do you create a user journey map? What are the steps involved?
There are a lot of different approaches, but the basic idea is to start by identifying a specific user persona and a specific goal they're trying to achieve. And then you map out all the steps they take along the way, from the initial trigger to the final outcome. For each step, you consider their thoughts, feelings, and actions.
It's like stepping into their shoes and experiencing the journey firsthand. You can really empathize with their struggles and celebrate their successes.
Exactly. You can also include information about the channels they use, the touch points they encounter, and any pain points or obstacles they experience. The goal is to get a holistic view of the user's experience and identify areas where design can make a difference.
So user journey maps aren't just about documenting the current state. They're also about sparking ideas for improvement, right?
Absolutely. They're a tool for both analysis and ideation. Once you have that map, you can start brainstorming ways to make the journey smoother, more enjoyable, and more effective.
That's so cool. It's like having a secret weapon in your design arsenal. Yeah. So user journey maps are a must-have. What other tools or techniques do you recommend?
Another powerful tool is prototyping. Prototypes bring your design ideas to life, allowing you to test them, gather feedback, and iterate on them before you invest a lot of time and money in development.
Prototypes are essential. I can't imagine trying to communicate a design concept without some kind of visual representation. And they're so helpful for getting stakeholders involved in the process.
Exactly. When stakeholders can see and interact with a prototype, they get a much better understanding of your vision and can provide more meaningful feedback.
It's like, don't just tell me about it, show me.
Yeah.
So what kind of prototypes are we talking about here?
There's a whole range of prototyping tools and techniques available, from simple paper prototypes to interactive digital mockups. The type you choose depends on the complexity of your design, your budget, and your timeline.
So if you're just exploring an idea, you might start with a rough paper prototype. But if you're pitching a fully interactive app, you probably need something a bit more sophisticated.
Exactly. The key is to choose the right tool for the job. And remember, prototypes don't have to be perfect. They're just tools for exploration and communication.
It's about getting the idea across, not creating a flawless finished product. Don't let perfectionism hold you back from prototyping and testing your ideas.
I love that you said that perfectionism can be the enemy of progress. Sometimes you just need to get something out there and see how it works in the real world.
So we've got user journey maps and prototypes. What else is in your communication toolbox?
Data visualization is another powerful way to communicate design value. By presenting data in a visual format, you can make it more engaging, memorable, and easier to understand.
Data visualization is key. I mean, who doesn't love a good infographic? It's like taking dry, boring data and turning it into a work of art.
Exactly. And there's so many different ways to visualize data, from simple charts and graphs to interactive dashboards and those beautiful infographics you mentioned. The key is to choose the right format for the data and the audience you're trying to reach.
So if you're trying to convince your boss to invest in a redesign, you might create a chart that shows how the current design is performing poorly in terms of key metrics like conversion rates or customer satisfaction scores. Then you could show how your proposed redesign is projected to improve those metrics based on user testing or industry benchmarks.
That's a great example. Data visualization can be incredibly persuasive when used effectively. It takes the guesswork out of the equation and shows the impact of design in a clear, concrete way.
It's like, look, the numbers don't lie. Design makes a difference. But data alone isn't always enough. Sometimes you need to connect with people on a deeper level, right?
Absolutely. That's where storytelling comes in. Stories are the key to connecting with people on an emotional level. They help us understand information, relate to characters, and remember experiences.
Stories are powerful. They transport us to another world and allow us to see things from a different perspective. But how can we use storytelling to communicate design value specifically?
Instead of just talking about the features of your design, share a story about how a real user benefited from those features. Tell a story about how your design helped someone save time, money, or frustration. Or share a story about how your design made someone feel more empowered, more connected, or more fulfilled.
Those stories make the design more human, more relatable. They give it a heart and soul.
Exactly. And they can be incredibly persuasive when it comes to winning over stakeholders. Stories help us understand why design matters, not just how it works.
So we've got user journey maps, prototypes, data visualizations, and storytelling. What a powerful arsenal. Are there any other tools or techniques you want to highlight before we move on?
One more that's absolutely essential: building relationships. It's not enough to just be a good communicator. You need to be a good listener, a good collaborator, and a good advocate for your team.
Design isn't a solo sport. It's a team effort.
Yeah.
You need to be able to work effectively with others to build trust and to champion each other's ideas.
Exactly. So take the time to get to know the people you're working with, understand their perspectives, their priorities, and their challenges. Build trust and rapport, and be willing to compromise and collaborate to achieve the best possible outcomes.
It's about creating a culture of collaboration and mutual respect. When you have strong relationships with your stakeholders, they're more likely to trust your judgment, value your input, and support your initiatives.
Right. It's about building a coalition of support for design within your organization. It's about working together to make design matter.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
We've talked about the importance of communicating design value, the challenges we face, and the tools and techniques we can use to overcome those challenges. As we wrap up this part of the deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
Design matters. It has the power to solve problems, improve lives, and make the world a better place. But it's up to us as designers to communicate that value effectively. We need to be champions, for design advocates for our users, and passionate storytellers who can bring our vision to life.
That's a powerful message. We need to embrace our role as design advocates and use our skills and talents to make a difference. Design is more than just a job. It's a calling.
I love that. It's a calling to create, to innovate, and to make the world a more beautiful, functional, and human-centered place.
So to our listeners, I say this: Embrace the power of design, hone your communication skills, and never stop advocating for the things you believe in. In the next part, we'll delve even deeper into the practical aspects of communicating design value. We'll explore how to craft compelling narratives, build relationships with stakeholders, and ultimately become a design champion within your own sphere of influence.
Yeah.
As we've been talking about advocating for design, like within organizations, I've been thinking about how all of this applies to anyone who has an idea they're passionate about.
Yeah.
Like whether you're pitching a new product or suggesting like a process improvement, or even just trying to convince your family to try that new ramen place down the street. Like these communication principles can be real game changers.
That's a great point. It's true. In a way, we're all designers. We're constantly shaping our experiences and the experiences of those around us.
That's so true. So even if you don't have like designer on your business card, you can still benefit from these communication skills.
Absolutely. The ability to articulate your vision, back it up with evidence, and connect with your audience on an emotional level, those are invaluable skills no matter what you do.
It's like that saying, good design is invisible. Well, good communication should be too, It should feel natural and effortless. But there's a lot of thought and strategy behind it.
Right. And those skills are transferable to any situation, whether you're in a boardroom, a classroom, or just having a conversation with friends over dinner.
Thinking back to the source material, it emphasizes that communicating design value isn't a one-and-done thing. It's an ongoing process.
Absolutely. It's about constantly nurturing those relationships, fostering a design thinking mindset, and consistently showcasing the impact of design.
It's about making design like an integral part of the organization's culture, not just a separate department or something we think about after the fact.
Exactly. And that takes time, effort, and persistent communication, but the payoff is huge.
When design is truly valued and like integrated into an organization's DNA, it can lead to some incredible innovation and create products and services that are not just aesthetically pleasing, but also functional, intuitive, and meaningful.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's about creating a holistic experience that meets users' needs on every level.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with? What's that nugget of wisdom they can carry with them?
I think the biggest takeaway is to embrace the power of design. Hone those communication skills and never stop advocating for the things that you believe in. Whether you're a seasoned designer or just starting out your journey, these principles can empower you to make a real difference.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of communicating design value. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, maybe even a little bit challenging.
It's been a pleasure.
Now go out there and make design matter.